America's biggest generation is walking straight into the worst retirement crisis in U.S. history, and no one is stopping it. I'm talking about 72 million boomers, and nearly half of them are hitting retirement age with less than $10,000 in savings. Let that sink in. The median 401k balance for boomers is $22,000, and at retirement, that's like showing up to a house fire with a garden hose. You combine that with a collapsing Social Security system, skyrocketing rent, six-figure medical bills, and the highest cost of living in 40 years. And you've got a generation that is too old to work, too broke to retire, and too ashamed to ask for help. And this isn't just personal finance. This is a slow-moving economic extinction event. Because the truth is, boomers didn't just retire broke, they were set up to fail. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how it happened, in 10 brutal, devastating chapters. Okay, this might sound insane, but let's just be honest. When boomers were planning for retirement, most of them never expected to live this long. Seriously. Back in 1960, when the first boomers were teenagers, the average life expectancy in the U.S. was 66.6 years. Just 1 year past Social Security's full retirement age. Fast forward to 2025, and life expectancy for a healthy retiree is now around 84 years for men and 87 years for women. That's 2 full decades longer than what retirement planning was originally designed to cover. And here's the kicker. That means millions of boomers now have to stretch their limited retirement savings across 20 more years of life they never financially planned for. It's like booking a 1-week vacation and finding out the hotel expects you to stay for a month. On your dime. Add to that the skyrocketing cost of healthcare, which is the number one expense in retirement. And you've got a perfect financial disaster. Fidelity estimates the average couple retiring today will need $315,000 just to cover healthcare expenses in retirement. That's without factoring long-term care, which 70% of seniors will need, and that costs an average of $108,000 per year for a private room in a nursing home. Most boomers don't have that money. Hell, most Americans don't. But boomers are uniquely screwed because they were the first generation told, "Don't worry, Social Security will take care of you." But now they're facing 2 decades of out-of-pocket costs on top of everything else. So what's the result? A mass wave of retirees quietly re-entering the workforce, not because they want to, but because they have to. It's not a victory lap, it's survival. And the sad part? These weren't irresponsible people. They just didn't plan for a world where retirement would last longer than their working lives. That's the quiet crisis nobody talks about. Boomers aren't running out of money because they were reckless. They're running out because they're still alive. The number one reason boomers will be broke in retirement is our healthcare system is quietly bleeding them dry. I'm not exaggerating. Let's start with this. Healthcare costs have risen 114% since 2000, nearly 4 times faster than wages. And for retirees, it's even worse. Medicare, the program boomers paid into their whole lives, doesn't cover everything. In fact, Medicare only covers about 80% of medical costs. And guess who's responsible for the rest? That's right. Grandma and Grandpa, who now have to cough up thousands every year for things like dental, vision, hearing aids, prescriptions, and long-term care. And while you might think, well, they have savings, here's the reality. Over 40% of boomers in retirement report having less than $25,000 in total savings. That doesn't even cover a single hospital visit. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, the average out-of-pocket cost for a major health event in retirement is $10,739. And if you're dealing with cancer, heart disease, or Alzheimer's, you're looking at 6-figure bills in the blink of an eye. So what do boomers do? They drain their 401ks, sell off assets, take reverse mortgages, or rack up credit card debt just to stay alive. In fact, over 2.7 million older Americans are currently carrying credit card debt into retirement, largely because of medical bills. And here's the worst part. Even those who plan ahead get punished. Medigap plans, drug coverage, supplemental insurance. It's a maze. The average retiree spends $7,000 to $12,000 per year on premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket costs, just to avoid going bankrupt over a bad diagnosis. This isn't healthcare, it's extortion for the elderly. Boomers thought their golden years would be about peace and travel, not negotiating with insurance companies while hooked up to an IV. It's a cruel reality, but unless something changes fast, healthcare will bankrupt more retirees than any stock market crash ever could. Now let's talk about something nobody wants to admit. It's not just housing or healthcare that's destroying boomer retirements. It's literally the cost of being alive in 2025. Everything, and I mean everything, has gotten more expensive. Since 2000, the price of food has gone up 76%, energy has surged over 120%, and rent for the 18 million seniors who don't own their homes has doubled in most cities. And sure, some of that is inflation, but a lot of it is systemic. For example, the cost of homeowners insurance has risen up to 50% in some areas just in the last 3 years, largely because of climate-related disasters. Property taxes in states like New Jersey and Illinois are eating up thousands annually. Utilities up across the board. The average retiree now spends $3,600 a year on electricity, gas, and water just to keep the lights on. And then there's food. The USDA reports that a modest grocery bill for a single retiree is now $339 per month, over $4,000 per year, and that's assuming they never go out to eat. Add in car insurance, gas, basic clothes, pet care, cell phone plans, internet. And suddenly, Social Security's average $1,845 monthly benefit doesn't even cover the essentials. Boomers are left having to choose between prescriptions and food, or between paying for heating and covering rent. And don't get me started on elder care. Many boomers are also financially supporting their own elderly parents who are in their 90s, a financial time bomb no one planned for. And this doesn't even include the grandkids. Because guess what? A lot of boomers are helping their adult children too, who are crushed under student loans and rent. The myth of the self-sufficient retiree is just that, a myth. The truth is, in America today, just being alive is unaffordable, and retirees are getting crushed under the weight of a broken system that's rapidly outpacing fixed incomes. All right, this is going to piss some people off, but it has to be said. Boomers didn't quit working. They were pushed out, and not gently. Corporate America used them for 40 years and then dropped them like a used Kleenex. You want proof? According to data from ProPublica and the Urban Institute, 56% of older workers are pushed out of jobs before they're ready to retire. And here's the kicker. Only 1 in 10 ever earn as much again in any future job. Age discrimination is rampant. Companies don't say it outright, but they don't have to. They just restructure, downsize, or eliminate roles. Translation? You're old, you're expensive, and you're replaceable. And even for the ones who aren't pushed out, technology moved so fast that they were left behind. Remote work, AI, apps, cloud software. Most companies would rather hire a 30-year-old who can run Slack and Salesforce blindfolded than retrain a 64-year-old. The result? Millions of boomers were either forced to take early retirement or shoved into part-time, low-wage jobs, cashier, greeter, delivery driver. And let's be real, that's a brutal fall from grace for people who spent decades in the workforce. One day you're managing teams, the next you're scanning barcodes for teenagers. The psychological toll is massive. Depression, anxiety, and suicide rates are spiking among older men. And why wouldn't they be? This generation was told, work hard, stay loyal, and the company will take care of you. Instead, companies cut pensions, outsource jobs, and replace them with temp workers and automation. Boomers gave corporate America the prime of their lives, and in return they were shown the door the minute profits slowed. So when you see that 70-year-old bagging groceries, don't assume they just love to stay busy. In many cases, they're there because corporate America made sure they had no other choice. You ever play a game for 40 years only to have the rules change right as you're about to win? because that's exactly what happened to the boomers. For decades, they paid into Social Security, Medicare, and various government programs under the assumption that those systems would be there for them. They weren't hoping to get rich, just to not be poor. But what nobody told them was that the government, quietly, over decades, was setting them up for failure. Let's start with Social Security. In 1983, Congress passed amendments to save the system by raising the full retirement age. For boomers born after 1954, the retirement age wasn't 65, it was 66, and for those born after 1960, it's now 67. That's 2 extra years of work for the same benefit. But wait, there's more. They also made Social Security taxable. That's right. Something boomers were told would be a tax-free benefit became subject to taxes in retirement if their income, including part-time work or savings withdrawals, exceeded just $25,000. That threshold has never been adjusted for inflation. So now even modest income retirees are double taxed, and don't even get me started on Medicare. While the program itself is still around, boomers are now stuck with higher premiums, fewer covered services, and increasing privatization. Medicare Advantage plans, which now cover over 50% of enrollees, often come with limited networks, denied claims, and predatory marketing. Boomers are discovering too late that the programs they trusted are hollowed-out husks of what they once were. And the most cynical part? Congress knew this was coming. The Social Security trustees have been warning for years that by 2033, the trust fund will be insolvent. What happens then? Benefits could be automatically cut by 20 to 25%. So boomers nearing 70 are staring down a future where the very lifeline they spent decades funding might not even be there. The rules changed, but only after they'd already crossed the point of no return. Nobody talks about this, but it's one of the biggest hidden reasons boomers are broke in retirement. They sacrifice their futures to save their kids from drowning in debt. Let me break it down. From the 1970s to the 2020s, college tuition in America increased by nearly 1,400%. Read that again. Not 14, not 140, 1,400%. And while wages stagnated, costs exploded. The average cost of a public university today with room, board, and fees is around $28,000 per year. Private schools? Easily $50,000 plus. And you know who was footing that bill? Boomer parents. These were people raised on the idea that sending your kids to college was your ultimate duty, that it was the investment in your family's future. So what did they do? They drained their 401ks, took out second mortgages, co-signed loans, and in many cases took on the student loans themselves. As of 2024, over 3.5 million Americans over the age of 60 still have student loan debt, mostly for their children's education. Total balance? $125 billion, that's not a typo. The government even garnishes Social Security checks to recover unpaid student loans. Can you imagine retiring, collecting your first check, and then watching the Department of Education take a slice out of it? That's real. That's happening. And even worse, a lot of these boomers made that sacrifice only to watch their kids graduate into a broken job market with no path to upward mobility. So now they're not just supporting their kids through college, but also helping with rent, groceries, even childcare. According to AARP, 54% of boomers are financially assisting adult children with no end in sight. Retirement was supposed to be the reward for a lifetime of hard work. Instead, it became the bailout period for everyone else. And the irony is brutal. In trying to give their kids a better future, boomers destroyed their own. They missed the real estate gold rush. Twice. You're probably thinking, oh wait, didn't boomers own all the houses? Yes, they did. But here's the shocking part. Many of them missed the biggest real estate windfall in American history. Not once, but twice. Let me explain. Boomers came of age when home ownership was the cornerstone of financial stability. But remember, the 2008 crash wiped out the equity of millions. Over 10 million Americans lost their homes. Others sold at the bottom, took cash-out refinances, or downsized under pressure. Many never recovered, so when housing started climbing again after 2012, they weren't in the game. Meanwhile, institutional investors were diving in. Blackstone, Invitation Homes, and others bought up hundreds of thousands of single-family homes. 40% of all homes sold in 2023 went to investors. And prices exploded. From 2012 to 2022, the median U.S. home price more than doubled, from $181,000 to over $430,000. But for many boomers, that train had already left the station. And the second punch? Rising rents. For the 18 million boomers who never re-entered the housing market or were lifelong renters, rent increases have been devastating. In places like Phoenix, Tampa, and Austin, rents rose by 30% plus in just 2 years during the pandemic recovery. And fixed incomes don't stretch. So while some boomers are paper millionaires sitting on homes they bought in 1985 for $89,000, millions more are priced out, either renting forever or forced to buy at inflated prices late in life when they should have been mortgage-free. And now, even the winners are getting squeezed. Property taxes are soaring, insurance rates are skyrocketing due to climate risks, maintenance costs are rising. The very asset that was supposed to be their retirement nest egg is becoming a money pit. So yeah, boomers owned the homes, but millions of them missed both the crash and the rebound, and that makes all the difference. The retirement system was built to benefit the rich, not the rest. America's retirement system was never built to help regular people retire. It was built to protect the wealthy. I mean the whole 401k structure. It sounds empowering. You're in charge of your future. But that was always corporate code for, we're off the hook. Good luck. Think about this. The 401k replaced pensions not because it was better, but because it was cheaper for employers. Instead of guaranteeing you a retirement income, they just hand you a tax-advantage bucket and say, figure it out. And you know who actually did figure it out? High earners. According to Vanguard, the top 10% of retirement accounts hold more than 75% of all 401k assets. Why? Because they can afford to max it out. They get the employer match. They get the tax breaks. They have accountants and financial advisors optimizing their portfolios. Meanwhile, the bottom 50% of boomers, the working class majority, never had the extra cash to contribute or got inconsistent matches or pulled money out during layoffs or family emergencies. And those people, they're retiring with nothing. But here's where it gets darker. All the tax benefits of retirement savings, like IRAs, Roths, 401ks, cost the government $279 billion per year, according to the Tax Policy Center. That's nearly double what the government spends on all federal housing assistance. And the kicker, most of those tax breaks go to the top 20% of earners. So basically, the retirement system funnels hundreds of billions in subsidies to people who were already going to retire comfortably, while the people who need help the most get crumbs. And this isn't an accident, it's by design. The system rewards wealth, not wages. Asset holders, not workers. Boomers trusted that playing by the rules would work out. But the truth is, the game was rigged from the start. If you weren't already rich, the retirement system didn't elevate you. It excluded you. So now we have a generation of boomers retiring into a system that works beautifully for the wealthy few. And the rest? They're falling straight through the cracks. If you're looking for the moment where everything falls apart, this is it. Because right now, in real time, the American safety net is disintegrating, and boomers are caught in the collapse. We're talking Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food assistance, housing subsidies. All of it is under pressure. And not just politically, mathematically. Let's start with the elephant in the room. Social Security is going broke. According to the 2024 Trustees Report, the Social Security Trust Fund will be insolvent by 2033. That's not doomer talk. That's an official government projection. And if Congress doesn't act, benefits will be automatically slashed by 23% across the board. For a boomer living off $1,800 a month, that's a $414 cut every month, forever. And Medicare, same story. The Hospital Insurance Trust Fund is projected to run dry by 2031. And long before that, premiums and out-of-pocket costs are set to skyrocket to keep the system afloat. Even Medicaid, the fallback safety net for long-term care, is being quietly gutted in state after state. Assisted living facilities are cutting staff. Nursing homes are shutting down. Wait lists are growing. And if that wasn't enough, food assistance programs for seniors are being slashed. Meals on Wheels saw federal funding drop despite demand skyrocketing. SNAP benefits are being clawed back. And housing. The Section 202 program for low-income seniors hasn't built enough units in decades. We are witnessing the largest generation in American history slide into retirement just as every program designed to help them is being defunded, privatized, or overwhelmed. And look, I'm not here to scream about politics, but this is math. We have 72 million boomers moving through the retirement pipeline, and the infrastructure to support them is crumbling. And here's the scariest part. This isn't a future problem. It's happening now. The support systems boomers were told would be there are vanishing before their eyes, and once they're gone, they're gone. There is no backup, no alternative, and no one is talking about what comes next when the safety net finally snaps. This is it, the final brutal truth. The number one reason why boomers are facing the worst retirement crisis in U.S. history. Ready? Because the American dream itself, the whole thing, turned out to be an illusion. Think about what boomers were promised. Work hard, buy a house, put your kids through school, save a little, play by the rules, and when you hit 65, you coast into a life of rest, dignity, and financial peace. That was the promise. That was the deal. But now, millions of them are waking up at 68, 70, 75, and realizing that promise was never real. Not for them. Not for most people. The job market got outsourced. Pensions were dissolved. Housing became speculative. Wages stagnated. Education became debt. Healthcare became predatory. And every time boomers adjusted to a new system, that system betrayed them. And now, at the finish line, they're tired, broke, and alone, staring down 20 years of uncertainty, scraping by on fixed incomes while watching billionaire portfolios explode in value. That's not retirement. That's economic exile. But here's the sickest part. They still blame themselves. Boomers don't march in the streets. They don't burn it all down. They internalize it. They say, maybe I didn't save enough. Maybe I should have known better. But let me say this loud for the people in the back. This is not their fault. This was a system failure. A bait and switch on a generational scale, a slow-motion theft of security, stability, and dignity. The American dream became a marketing slogan, weaponized to sell loans, insurance policies, and lifestyle products. And when the music stopped, the people who believed in it the most were left standing in silence. That's why this isn't just a retirement crisis. It's a moral one. A society that cannot care for the people who build it, who sacrificed everything to raise the next generation, is a society that's broken at its core. And what comes next? That's the question. Because if we don't fix this, we already know how the story ends. This wasn't just bad luck or poor planning. This was a generational collapse engineered over decades. Boomers played by the rules. They worked hard. They saved when they could. They trusted the system. But the system changed the rules, moved the goalpost, and then pulled the rug out at the finish line. And now, millions of them are living out their final decades with no safety net, no second chance, and no way out. They're bagging groceries at 72. They're driving Uber at 68. They're rationing medication, skipping meals, and selling off heirlooms just to make it to next month. But here's what makes this even more brutal. We're next. Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, we're walking the same road, but with even less support. No pensions, a shrinking Social Security trust, a housing market that's pricing us out, and corporate jobs that disappear the moment you hit 50. If you think this is just a boomer problem, you're not paying attention. This is the blueprint of collapse, and it's coming for all of us, unless something changes fast. So if there's one thing you take away from this video, it's this. No one is coming to save you. Not the government, not your employer, not Wall Street. The only way out is knowledge, strategy, and urgency. Take this story seriously. Learn from it. Prepare. And most of all, don't assume the system has your back, because it never did. Thanks for watching. If this hit you hard, share it with someone who still thinks everything's fine. And if you want to hear how the American dream quietly died and who really got rich while the rest of us fell behind, watch the next video. Trust me, it's all connected.